"A church mouse!" roared his father as loudly as any mouse can roar. "A church mouse!" squeaked his mother, hiding her face in her apron. "A church mouse?" chorused his brothers and sisters before turning to peals and squeals of laughter. "Yes," said Johann more firmly, looking at all of them defiantly. "I want to be a church mouse." "But why?" protested his father. "Church mice do nothing. They have nothing. They are the poorest of all mice." "No," said Johann, his whiskers quivering with his own bravery. "They have something. They have music from the organ every day." "You won't get fat on music," said his father grimly. "I tried some music manuscript once, very dry and not much taste." "No, father," said Johann earnestly. "I listen to the music. It makes me feel good all over." The argument went on for so long and so loudly that the Burgermeister angrily put his cat down in the basement. "That will quiet those pesky mice," he said. Time went by and there were many more arguments about Johann's idea. But nothing could change his mind, and he went often at dusk to sit happily with old Victor and listen to the organ. Still, it was summer, and Johann liked to scamper in the long grass and the flowers and play with his brothers and sisters too. In the autumn, when the trees were beginning to lose their leaves and the grass was becoming dry and yellow in the mountain meadows, he heard that old Victor, whom he had not visited for many days, was dead. "Oh dear," thought Johann. "Now there is no church mouse." And he immediately decided to take old Victor's place. Of course, there was another big family argument, but they soon saw that Johann's mind was made up. His mother made him a good lunch with a piece of cheese in it, so big he was scarcely able to carry it. She cried and had to wipe her eyes with the corner of her checked apron. His father harumphed a lot, but he gave Johann a thick warm jacket and a big green woolen muffler, then wiped his glasses on his handkerchief, blew his nose loudly, and patted Johann on the head. All his brothers and sisters kissed Johann tearfully as he went off to make his home in the church. After he had been the church mouse for 2 months, Johann knew that every word old Victor had told him was true. It was certainly cold in the winter-time. There was never very much to eat, for the pastor was poor and there were not many crumbs left from his table. The fine lunch his mother had packed was gone after the first week, although he had tried to nibble at it just a little at a time. His warm jacket soon became threadbare, and his fine muffler lost much of its bright color, as well as a good deal of its warmth. But there was the music. Franz Xavier Gruber, the young schoolmaster, composed marvelous music and played on the organ beautifully. And there was the carved angel. Somehow, Johann and the angel had become friends. Johann always felt the angel was looking directly at him with such a kindly look. He knew that in her wooden heart she loved him and was glad he had come to live in her church. Now, as Christmas approached in the year 1818, the Tyrol was very deep in snow. It was a difficult winter for everyone, and Johann didn't even find bits of candy or sweet cookies that the children sometimes dropped. And although Johann's heart was happy with the choir rehearsals of Christmas songs and Herr Gruber's practices for the organ recital he gave every year, he was hungry. One night, while behind the organ, almost fainting with hunger, he thought, "If I could only nibble a little of the leather from the organ's bellows, I could survive until Christmas." Johann knew that at Christmas all the people made a special effort to bake something nice for the pastor, and he knew that he would get his share. But Johann needed something now, or he would not live to hear the Christmas music or share the pastor's gifts from the villagers. So he nibbled just a little bit on the leather. In his hunger, he returned the next night to nibble a little more on the bellows leather, and the next night, and the next. until one night the organ would not make a sound when Herr Gruber played it. He looked the organ over carefully. "Oh," he cried, "a mouse has gnawed at the bellows. We must send at once for Karl Maurocker." Herr Maurocker was a famous organ builder and mender who lived in a nearby village. Herr Gruber rushed off to tell the pastor, but the kindly pastor just looked at him sadly. "Alas, Herr Gruber," he said, "with the hunger and poverty which has been our lot since the wars, there is no money left. All our parish funds have been spent to help the poor. We have nothing left for things like fixing organs." "This is terrible," said Herr Gruber. "The people always look forward to the music at Christmas. It helps them forget their poverty and the war. It makes them think of the one who fed the poor and who was called the Prince of Peace." Johann heard every word of the conversation. His heart almost broke with shame. He crouched in a corner and trembled with dread, thinking of what he had done. He dared not look the angel in the face. He was sure he would see there the sorrow he knew she felt for his weakness. "I have failed," thought Johann miserably, with tears trickling down his whiskers. "I am not a good church mouse." And then he heard the pastor say, "Wait, Herr Gruber, I have an idea. I have just recently written a humble poem about the way I feel on Christmas Eve. Perhaps you could compose some music to fit the words. We can teach it to the choir, and you can accompany it on your guitar. Perhaps with a new song, the people will not mind if the Christmas Eve program is different from other years." "I will try, Pastor," said Herr Gruber. "The time is very short, but I will gather some choir members in my home, where it is warmer, and try." The days passed quickly as the year moved towards Christmas. The pastor was so busy with the preparations he hardly touched his simple meals, so there was plenty for Johann to eat. But Johann could hardly touch the food. He was so miserable over the trouble he had caused, and the fact that he might have spoiled the whole Christmas music program. He crept around the church close to the walls. He dared not lift his eyes to the angel. And then it was Christmas Eve. The bell in its steeple rang out happily across the snow, but in his corner, Johann cringed with shame. The bell was calling everyone to witness his terrible deed. The people of Oberndorf crowded the church. They did not look as happy as they usually did. They knew about the organ, and they did not expect to enjoy the Christmas music in the old way. The pastor spoke to the people. "My friends," he said, "you all know what has happened to our organ." In his dark corner, Johann shivered. "But," the pastor went on with a smile, "our dear friend Herr Gruber has composed some music for a little Christmas poem of mine. We will sing it and pray our humble offering will be acceptable to God." Herr Gruber struck a chord on his guitar, and the choir began to sing. Slowly at first, then rapidly, a look of delight spread over the faces of the villagers. Even more slowly, the music pierced the blanket of misery in which Johann huddled. "Why," he thought, "it's beautiful! It's the most beautiful music I had ever heard." And the choir sang, "Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright." Johann raised his eyes to the angel, and it seemed as if a special warm light, not just the reflection of the candles, glowed all around her. For the angel was looking right at him, and he thought she smiled. And he seemed to hear the little angel say in a sweet voice, "Little Johann, because of you, the whole world will have a special song of praise to sing at Christmas." And so it came to be, as the music rose from the church and floated out across the glittering moonlit snow of the Tyrol. Herr Maurocker fixed the organ and took the manuscript of the new song in part payment. From musician to musician, it spread around the world. It rings out every Christmas in the hearts and in the voices of people everywhere. But every day of his life, it rang with especial joy in the heart of a little mouse named Johann in the village of Oberndorf, high in the Austrian Tyrol.